What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Lethal Introspection Podcast. I am one of your many hosts of the crew here, Matt, and with us, back after a long hiatus, Jose Amaya.
Hello.
Welcome back. And as usual, the lovely Hannah Metro.
Hello.
And today, for the podcast, we decided to continue our tradition of making Jose watch weird and crazy movies, and we watched Cube.
Yep.
The 1997 movie made in Canada for $350,000. Amazingly. So fresh takes coming right off the movie. Jose, having not seen this before, Hannah and I have. What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
How many times have you guys seen this movie before?
I think just once.
Just the ones?
Yeah, once or twice.
And it wasn't that long ago either. It was within the past 2 years.
Oh, okay, cool.
Past 5 years.
Cool. So it hasn't this movie hasn't simmered inside of your head like you would watch this when you were a kid and left imprints on you.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, it did leave imprints.
Yeah. Yes,
At this point, yeah, for sure. But I would imagine this is the kind of movie that would certainly hit way different if I had seen this when I was 9 years old. Mostly because at this point, I see all of the places where, much like other cult classic movies like this, where you can see that fun directors get derivative with it. And I can't pinpoint anything right now, but my mind is just racing with things that this movie has most certainly been referenced to in sci-fi and low fantasy things that I really enjoy that are in the same metric as this one pretty much.
When you say that, do you think that this is the influencing factor or that it is being influenced by other things?
Oh, no, this is the influencing factor. I mean, this movie being from 1997, I mean, relative to ourselves, that's now a pretty classic movie to me. The directors who would have been 20 to 25 at the time this movie came out watched it and be like, oh, what the fuck? And then went on to direct and write the movies that I, as an adolescent, went to see, in the the mid-early 2000s and stuff like that, probably were 100% inspired and desired to derive.
Good. I mean, that's always a good sign.
Yeah, for sure. But the most interesting thing for sure when thinking about it from that perspective is how bare bones this movie is in relation to the kind of themes that it wants to touch with this type of just setting, I suppose. Because even the platform, I feel, was a little more sophisticated with its parable macro social archetyping of people,
more meaty.
Yeah, it wasn't like, hey, this guy is 100% if you could just imagine a zeitgeist behind this man's back and this lady's back, they exemplify every one of these facets of reality. That's essentially what this movie is they get a little hammy with it for sure when it comes to the dialogue. Yeah. And hey, if I were getting paid the $2,000 that the writer probably got paid to write this movie, I get it. You know what I mean? Listen, you're only going to get so sophisticated with what you're paying me, all right?
I get the impression that, the 90s were just a sassier time. People were sassier when they talked to each other or something.
This movie has so much sass. I forgot how much attitude this movie
had. Jose kept saying,
the 90s was all attitude.
Yeah, so. Wasn't it? 10 years of attitude.
I mean, it's all what do you think that's part of because it's essentially, in my opinion, the last time American exceptionalism could be taken seriously. Oh, you're from the United States. If you at least have the wherewithal to think of something, you'll be able to make something out of that. And that was true 9 out of 10 times back then still. And we hadn't been shaken by the tragic events that were coming up 4 years, ahead of us. There was just no way to be able to see that kind of shift. So perhaps that really does showcase itself in the And, you know, it might actually be even more true in relation to the fact that a Canadian wrote this, right? Yeah. Like, that's their perception of how American people would act, you know?
Sucks.
Like these people are pushy. You know what I mean? Like they like
But that's really
Go
soft
getters.
word.
yeah. Well,
Pushy.
imagine, right? The majority of Canadian people live in the strip of like the lakes, like superior lakes and stuff. You know, so the majority of them probably only get either the upper Midwestern or the New Yorker. You know, the New Yorker type of exposure to American people. You know, by the by, obviously. So I could only imagine that would shade your way of thinking in terms of like how the rest of everybody is probably.
Well, this is probably a generational thing too, being like the age that these people were in 97, you know, because I think like perhaps because of some of the things that you just said, like older generations, not always, tend to be a little pushier and a little bit more aggressive. I think that like the younger generations are more, I don't know, polite.
Sort of cultural softening
Yeah.
here and there. Yeah. The expanding moral circle, gay rights, trans rights, as we move through. But the 90s, I guess, is pretty late in that time period. But yeah.
I don't know. If you've worked in retail, I feel like that's the only thing I'm drawing from.
I don't know. I mean, like relative to the kind of professions that these guys are coming from, right? If we're going to believe everything that everybody said, like nobody's, you know, being duplicitous. Being a cop, you're usually pushy, you know, and if you're not,
You gotta be.
yeah, and if you're not, you are stonewall. You stonewall people all the time, you know, like because either you're pushing or you're essentially just deflecting all of the time. You're a free clinic doctor. You're not exactly dealing with the most sophisticates of that which society allows. So because of that, you either have to have unbelievable amounts of empathy, you know, or just not give a shit at
And
any
that lady
given
was like a split
at any
between
given
those.
time. You know, like that. That is essentially the requisites of the job, because you can have somebody that's genuinely ill impaired that needs your help, and then there's this other person who is a self-rot junkie who, you know, the moment you fix them up, they're gonna go back out there and then they're gonna come back to you because now they know that you're the stupid kind of Mark that goes to school for 8 years to just patch them up, you know. So
Yeah, she's a little bitter. You
Yeah.
can tell.
Well, and if you work in that field too, you've got to be hardened to like delivering terrible news and having really hard conversations.
on top of that, I'm sure that as a free clinic doctor, she's more than privy to the generalities of a police officer's way of being. You know, like
Oh, yeah, they probably have interactions.
yeah, all of
I'm
the
sure.
time. Yeah, like, and she is probably pro patient, you know, and advocating that. But again, if you're a free clinic doctor, there's a high potentiality that the people you're dealing with were just doing illicit things a moment ago before they got to you. So it's like, so you know that the police are coming, right? And not only that, but you have to be put sometimes in the discretionary position of being like, should we call the cops? Like, I mean, like these, like, who knows, like if this needs to be investigated further, like, okay, they just OD'd, were they with other people? Like, I can't leave my clinic. Somebody has to go check that out. And then once you do that, you don't have the, you have the discretion of putting them on that, but then you lose all discretion to figure out how they will handle it from then on out. So it's like, did
Well-
you just sick the dogs on people who are actually even worse off than...
And if you're licensed, a lot of people, you know, most people are required reporters.
Yeah.
So you have to call the police in situations that meet certain criteria. And it's like you might very frequently not want to do that. So they could be an overall negative force in your career and your desire to help people.
Yeah, so by having to become an involuntary whistleblower for the same structure that you resent, you know, I can only imagine that would make you horribly bitter in that way. And, you know, potentially paranoid because of the fact that as a person who's a doctor, right, she has to probably believe that she's intelligent to a good degree, right? Like,
I mean, she has to be to some degree.
you have, I mean, but see, that's the thing. Like, you can be intelligent and not believe you're intelligent at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's common.
Like, those two things can be true at the same time, but you can have an ego that matches your intelligence. A lot of the time, people who understand that, if, you know, the issue with their personality is when one overtakes the other in that way. You know, they allow their ego to make them believe that they're more intelligent than they actually are. But
Well,
then,
that's that like known knowns to unknown unknowns visual. You know what that's called, right? It's like a cube diagram, and it talks a lot about, like, if you know very little bit about a topic, you think that there's less to know about that topic.
Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah, Dunning-Kruger. Thank you. So your ego like takes over at that point because you think you know everything about that topic. But if you've studied it enough to know how much you don't know, then your confidence in it drops significantly. So the people who know the lot about
Hannah, that's so beautiful that you just said that, because that encapsulates the movie so perfectly, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because this dude, Quentin, he is a we'll do things right in front of us kind of guy. He wants the perception to always stay there because that's where he's useful. He's useful in the instinctual moment to moment kind of situation.
Good under pressure.
Yeah, but no, not even under pressure. The moment the box widens, he understands how outside of his depth he is. So because of that, he then has to lean on his aggressiveness and his pushiness, because otherwise he knows that he's a burden. Like he is so privy to how other people are burdens that he can just like he said, that he has like that X-ray vision of being able to see through people. I believe him. It's just the problem is he can do that to himself too. And the moment that he is able to see how exposed he is in terms of how useless he is in any particular moment, he decides to just lean on the brutality of his physical ability.
He's afraid they're gonna leave him behind.
Yeah. That's why he got rid of the one naysayer, or the loudest voice against him.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because with the two men, he can either overpower them physically or at least make it seem like they're the bigger threat than he is. I would imagine that in his, chauvinistic way of thinking, he probably is just like, a woman wouldn't be able to be a physical threat to me in that way. All she could be able to do is essentially psychologically bend everyone else, against me.
She can poison the well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and all these personality traits are heightened with the lack of sleep and food and water
and living in Parable Land. That doesn't help either.
This movie isn't quite as Parable Land as Platform.
Well, I don't know. I guess you understand that they have a profession and stuff like that. Like, you can believe that there's a world out, or at least they believe enough that there's a world out there.
Well, the one guy apparently built the outer shell.
Right. Yeah.
Which is fun. I really like that, using Platform as an example. I like that in this movie there's plenty enough outside connection references that you're like, okay, this seems much more realistic than Scary Elevator Room.
That's kind of what we talked about with Platform, is like, I don't know anything about the world outside of this. I don't know where you're located. This could be way in the future. This could be way in the past. Like, I've got nothing.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Because if I could recall, my biggest criticisms of that is the fact that I can believe that a gigantic tower exists. There's nothing that's stopping me from wanting to believe that, and then nothing is stopping me from believing that there's a prison there too. It's the people themselves that they didn't provide enough meat in order to be able to have myself be like, okay, so this place is obviously fictional. Not even just fictional, but because it's a story, but hyper fictional in the in the way that it's constructed, in the way that it's supposed to be administered. And on top of that, you're also throwing these hyper fictional people on top of this, where they're more archetype than they are person. This movie almost did that. But it did that more in dialogue than it did in in their mannerisms and way of being. This movie did a lot of heel turns when it came to the sanity of people. A lot. It was it's amazing. It's actually pretty amazing how much I'm willing to forgive now that I know how little money these people have to be able to do reshoots, do any sort of consideration in terms of bringing this all together. I'm thinking Clerks. These guys had about twice as much money as what's it? Damn,
Clerks.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith.
Yeah, Kevin Smith.
Yeah, with a much more demanding set too.
Yeah,
I imagine most of their money went to this. You think?
I think that's all you need for this set is 2 boxes.
But the sound design was a lot more complicated. I would the actual
CGI.
the CGI for all of the traps.
They had to hire that lady to go.
Yeah.
I bet
Yeah.
she was the most expensive person here.
She's got a niche, you know what I mean? It's like, you can, like, these are, 10 a penny actors potentially, but I mean, like, that lady.
But I could go.
Yeah, it is like a real thing too. Because the first time I watched this movie, I wasn't as aware of the factors to look out for. I wasn't as aware of budget and stuff like that. And for sure, like, the acting is definitely hammy to the point of being irritating throughout this movie from time to time.
Yeah.
I think it's the dialogue. I honestly
The
think
dialogue is terrible.
I think I think the acting when they're just doing physical maneuvers, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, that's fine.
even like like the energy of camaraderie, that ebbs and flows throughout the movie when they're like going from room to room. I found it really believable and organic. It's just the points where the movie is like, no, this guy's the fascist, you see, and then this one's the bleeding heart, and they collide with each other, you see, and then the intellectual, you know what I mean? Although they don't have a lot of physical capabilities, they have the leverage that they maintain is the fact that society literally needs them in order to be able to continue on forward.
Oh, it's a commentary. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
it's a sci-fi horror.
It can be
It's a
two
real
things.
cube.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not even that, but it's like even the way that they talked about the creation of the cube. You know what I mean? It might as well have somebody been like white noise saying, "It's society, man.
Well,
It's society."
yeah, well, and the doctor talks about that a lot. She insists that it's like a societal thing. But it is like, I do think while the dialogue is bad and takes away from this, the actual strategy for allowing us to get to know the characters is tactful, I think, because that is kind of the first thing that you would do if you found yourself in this situation and you're like, why me? You're like, okay, well, why us? Let's figure it out. And it allows us to get to know them.
Oh, 100%. I can't believe that they didn't go crazier sooner, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I'd have lost it immediately.
Yeah, that's one of the more unbelievable things in my mind. It's just like the fact that everyone's just like, let's all stick together and figure this out. Even after we figured out this guy got his fucking face melted off.
Yeah, the supposedly the only smart one in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the first guy that got like cut into cubes? Did he just not make it to the group?
Right
Was
there
he
at the
in
bottom,
same
Alderson,
thing?
unknown. He woke up alone in another room and never encounters the rest of the group.
Oh man.
Is that just to tell us ahead of time what's going on?
Yeah, a nice little intro. Rooms are trapped.
I did like the intro. Like, I like that you follow him through it, but there's no way to know the timeline if he was in there at the same time as the rest of the group or if it was like, something that happened long before as a test. You just don't know.
I'm gonna once again throw this rock at the writing, because I would have to imagine that this is a situation where they're like, yeah, we have all these characters, like we've made up all these characters, but it's like, oh, we have this like one extra character. It's like, like they tried to like figure out, it's like, okay, if we have one more man in the story, like Quentin can't overpower this other guy because then these other two guys can overtake him. You know what I mean? And it's like, so because of that, we have to set it up in a way where eventually it comes to pass that it is only these two able-bodied, men to be able to, I guess, go off against each other.
Well,
I'm sorry, Hannah. I want to finish my thought real quick because the thing that I was thinking about the entire time, every time I saw Quentin try to puff his chest, is the fact that it really showcases the fact that he's not smart. Because, even the most basic understanding of like evolutionary psychology of great apes will tell you that it only takes two chimpanzees to take down one big chimpanzee, no matter how big that other chimpanzee may be. It's very rare that, two can't take down one in a coordinated effort. And the way that he was antagonizing everyone, really, I was glad that they did that they had that scene where they like hit the hatch, they hit him in the throat with the hatch, because I was like, that's perfect, that's exactly right. That's exactly where our psychology leads when someone tries to be too pushy. Like, it only takes one moment of them not paying attention or thinking that they're 100% on top, while everybody else absolutely fucking hates them. You know what I mean? For this one guy to come through with either, you know, up the throat or with a rock, if we were out in the jungle, you know what I mean? Just hit him in the back of the head and just hit him 3 more times and be like, hey, listen, he's gonna bleed out. I'm not gonna be all brutish about it, but fuck that guy, you know? And everyone just, yeah.
They stress kind of that he's, I don't even want to say necessarily not smart, just speaking only from what I've seen, but definitely like not curious even. And that, you know, those are usually like a 1-to-1 ratio. Is when they're figuring out the math, like he doesn't even ask questions about the process. He's just like, okay, how do we get out of here? Like,
figure it out, smart man.
Yeah, it's because that's when he felt the most exposed as a useless.
One useless.
Yeah, he got called out, and that's like when it really started to crack too.
Yeah, exactly.
Tracking back though to the original, I just want to make one like comment on like the guy ahead of time, because I like one thing about it and I dislike another thing about it. I like that because to me, if all the people were in there and they were in separate rooms, but none of them died before they found each other, to me, that's not very believable. So I like that they killed somebody off ahead of time for the believability. I think it helps a little bit. But I also think it makes the equation not add up, because I think everybody else had useful skills that equaled the exit. So I wonder what that guy brought to the table that he never was able to bring to the table. Because like the student lady, Levin, or whatever her name is, she couldn't have figured out how to get to the exit without information from the guy that built the shell.
Worth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this sort of this gets at like one of the bigger meta questions for the movie of like and I don't know if it's important enough at all to even like think about, but
we'll ask it first. I'm going to say it first before we discard it.
No, don't make me think about it. If it's not
exactly. I mean, if you already don't think it's worth saying, what are you prefacing?
All right, let me bore you guys for a second.
You prefacing something boring?
Yeah, you can just not pay attention for the next minute if you want.
Cut his mic.
Yeah, so like you said, they have this guy at the beginning who has no connection to the rest of the group, but the group does seem to be composed of these kind of specific parts, and maybe it's just plot glue, but enough different characters that they make up the Voltron of being able to solve the cube. And I'm wondering if that leans itself toward this the meta question of were these people chosen specifically? Is this like a group that the mad scientists of the cube decided to put together for the social experiment or whatever it is? Or is it that this random group of people somehow found each other within the cube? Because obviously there's other people around there, or maybe just this one other guy.
There probably is more people in the cube.
Yeah, it's hard to say because they never come across another person.
I'm gonna.
Kazan they stumbled upon.
It's like 17,000 rooms or something.
Yeah.
But they started in the starting box, basically, or very close to it.
Well,
the starting box.
They didn't start
box.
They didn't start in the starting box because that's where Ren died. She said, "Let's stay here," isn't it?
No, in the very first room.
In the very first room where they all
here.
He moved and died, and they pulled him back in.
Ren opened one door, threw a boot in, and there was fire. He opened another door, threw a boot in, and there wasn't anything. And he went through that one, and then he got his face melted.
But they weren't all in that box to begin with. Some people woke up in their own box. They were just close.
I thought that they moved through a couple rooms with Ren before he died.
I think it was all within the starting room. We might have to go back and check.
I mean, we have the Wikipedia here open, so we can check.
You might be right.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like up to the top of the...
Oh. Yes. 5 desperate people. That's great. These Wikipedia authors are wonderful. The maze is beset by frequent tremors. Oh, here it is. Okay. Ren enters a room that he thinks to be safe and is killed when he is sprayed in the face with acid.
No, I guess it is in this first room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ren, a convict who has escaped 7 prisons. That must have been one line of dialogue because I don't remember that. But
you don't remember that? They talked about that.
They said, Worth was like, he escaped 6 prisons. He's like, I escaped 7.
Yeah.
That's
but on your, like, I don't know, on your point though, it is, I think it's too convenient. Like, I think it had to be intentional who was chosen because they had somebody that was on the spectrum that could figure out, you know, the factors of the numbers that she even said, I feel like very clearly to the audience almost, I would need a computer. There's not a human alive that can do this.
Yeah.
So I feel like that has to be intentional. Like, she's the logic factor to figure out what numbers they need to know, and then he is the numbers that they need to know.
Yeah, these
Too
are
careful.
this is the, like, those are the higher layered details that this thing lacks that keeps it from being grounded outside of Parable Land.
Yeah.
You know, because in the fact that it's so into our own interpretation, I can literally go as fantastical as I possibly want with that answer, and I would still be right, because just because Worth says that there is no grander conspiracy, I mean, why can't it be reptile people? Why can't it be aliens? You know, why can't it be any others of the other things? You know, so long as he is still some dude sitting on a computer, you know, making the design without him knowing about it, right?
Yeah. Aliens can run shell companies.
They even mentioned aliens at the beginning of
Oh,
this
I can make
movie.
you an LLC today, buddy. I mean, like,
You need a big cube? I'll build you a
exactly.
big
Cube Inc. It'll be hilarious. Nobody will think about it.
Cubic.
Cubic Systems Corp. I mean, that's...
So I wonder, what I was thinking about was this, because it does like dip its toe so much into Parable Land, is like, and this is just, you know, fun speculation, but like, what, like you said about, the exit?
What do you mean? When, like
Like it was basically like an
what's his
analogy
name?
of hell.
Kazan just walked out?
No, like it's an analogy of hell. The cube is.
Oh, yeah. Right. The inspirations that you can certainly tell this movie came from is like the Jean-Paul Sartre's film/theater production called No Exit.
No exit.
Yeah, but in that one, the people are in hell, you know, and they all deserve it. Like they 100% deserve it. And it's just a showcasing of the fact that there is no need for, at least at that point, people still had a more classical understanding of what hell would be like, where it's like, you know, they poke you and like they burn you and stuff like that. But this was supposed to showcase the fact that none of that is necessary, because ultimately, you know, our psychology, our interpersonal psychology, you know, can, given an infinite amount of time, is just enough to, you know, to torture you.
Oh, this hell is other people.
Yeah, that is the hell is other people kind of situation. And you know, you can tell that the movie like took from that, but the issue with it is the fact that when No Exit does it, it's comfortably placed in a supernatural setting. So when you're watching everything happen and watching the reasons why they can't hurt each other, you know, why they can't leave the room, you know, like those, it's very understandable because of the fact that you understand that it's literally the devil, you know, making it so even though the door is just wide open, you know, they feel that it gets hotter and hotter as they walk out into like the hallway, and they're like, and then they have to shut the door, right? They do that to themselves,
right?
You know, they can get to the position where they get so psychologically angry with each other that they want to hit each other, but there's just nothing, you know, like their body just isn't, they can't induce their body to do that, you know. All they can do is just scream and yell at each other, you know, in a very impotent way, essentially. And given enough time, silence doesn't even work, because eventually someone cracks it. And, you know, slowly but surely the wheel starts turning, and pleasantries and chit chat eventually turn right back into whatever made you angry with each other again in the first time, given an infinite amount of time. The fact that this movie wants to be real, insofar as even if it is aliens or a hyper government, trying to do some sort of weird testing situation, these people are still flesh and bone and they do die at the end of it. I was kind of expecting to figure out that this was some sort of clone form, to be perfectly honest. One of the small quasi predictions I was making in my brain as I was watching the movie happen is be like, I bet that we're gonna run into a clone of one of these guys, and then it's gonna be like, oh, there's a ton of people in there, but they're all the same type of people, where it's like
would have been fun.
yeah, where it's like you have these 2, 4, 7 archetypes of an individual, right? And I wonder if there's anything to do with the 7 deadly sins there. Who knows with these artsy people, how many fucking things they layer in,
The budget's too small.
Yeah, exactly. It's but we'll drop it in there. We'll wink at whoever can see it.
Yeah. The writers are like, look, you're not paying me enough.
Yeah.
To incorporate all of this.
Yeah. Listen, the best I can give you is the exact numeral of.
I'm really good at sassy dialogue.
Yeah.
I can give you a lot of sassy dialogue.
You hired me for sassy dialogue.
Yeah. I was the underwriter in Hackers. All right. I don't need to take this.
The Pauly Shore movies?
Yeah.
Me. All me.
Me.
Yeah. I mean, given the fact that this is not a AAA movie, right? This is most certainly an indie movie. Just like nowadays, AAA titles that want to deeply psychological, they usually can't get any further than exactly the kind of production this movie is pretty much applying right now. And fortunately, even for less amount of money nowadays, because you just have to buy the rendering and buy the licensing to the engine. It's you can potentially get away with that for $10,000, $15,000 if you really wanted to, put money to try to make money on it. You could make the Cube game, and then have a couple of your buddies do the dialogue just as sassy, and just
maybe a little less.
You could make this movie with 2 iPhones and a group of friends nowadays.
Yeah, 100%, right? I mean, it's the same wall over and over again. So
that's one of the things that I really appreciate about this movie and a lot of other movies like this, where they're sort of single setting with a small group of people and the majority of the plot is moved by the dialogue. Because this movie definitely is. They're all puzzle solving their way through, It's that the ability to make so much with so little is always fascinating to me. And I'm just a sucker for these
one room
self-enclosed. Yeah.
I always appreciate the amount of confidence it must take to be able to make a story like this and be okay with it. And I mean that in the sense that plot holes be damned. I am such a fucking self-stickler when it comes to wanting to create anything, but then having to consider the plot holes of what I'm writing, that cohesiveness is essentially a crutch for me, because of that. And wherein in this movie, they're how did they get abducted? Fuck you. We're not going to answer that. Yeah.
Think about it, dummy.
Part of the journey, though, is for me, I like self-enclosed movies, too. And part of it is because they put me in the same position as the people who are in there. Not knowing is part of the
Intimacy?
Adventure, for me is I'm in the same position really as these people, of course, not the same, but I feel the same way that they do. I know the same amount of information that they do, and I'm figuring it out with them. And I enjoy that. I purposely look for indie low budget movies because I think that a budget doesn't make a good movie. It's the vision and the want to make a good movie and the idea that make a good movie.
But all necromancy, you need a lot of ingredients if you're gonna make a good corpse dance. And it's And it's like this movie has great bones. You know what I mean? Like they made those bones dance, but you can certainly tell that if they had an extra $2 million, they
be
could
a
have been able.
different
Yeah, they could have been able to fucking literally flesh that out much better and had a complete walking, talking, perfectly, for the time kind of, kind of thing. If they would have had an extra 10 minutes. Essentially 10, 15 minutes, not even like all together, but just the compacting of a minute of extra information here, a minute of extra information here, literally sprinkled throughout the entirety of the movie, they would have been able to make it cohesive enough that a stickler guy like me wouldn't really be too bothered by it, because they're like, okay, well, they gave us enough answers. Like I can then flesh out the rest like you wanted me to. Right now, you're asking me to lift too much, unfortunately, because with the amount you're asking me to lift, you're essentially just giving me like a rough draft almost of being like, here's the characters, here's how they end up, and here's their setting, now you make the world building,
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, because where's the line between these two things? Because I know that you as a viewer appreciate being able to do world building yourself. You like some ambiguity to plug in other narratives and figure out what you think could really be there and what the potential is. Where's the line between like allowing you space for world building, but also like telling you enough that you're like that they're not making the viewer do all the work?
I will say that in that way, I probably don't have enough professional understanding of how to write a script to be able to do that. But as a viewer, I could say that within those 10 minutes of 1 minute sprinkled considerations that I'm asking for to be thrown in within the movie, they could have potentially either leaned it deeper into the fantasy or leaned it deeper into the realism, because that's the issue that I'm having right now, is the fact that it's up to interpretation in terms of the ontology of the movie. I don't know whether we're dealing with aliens, you know what I mean, or we're dealing with just a government situation, or we're dealing with or we're literally just dealing with literally being bereft out in space, and again, it's because of how they ended up there, if we're gonna even if you want to say that we always want to keep the perspective of the initial characters to maintain both intimacy and the same spectrum of understanding, even 30 seconds of showcasing maybe how they got there, would have been able to ground me a little deeper into whether this is aliens or the government, because I think that stuff matters, because at the end of the day, if you're going to try to make the whole movie be a macro parable about society, if aliens are the reason why I ended up there, it doesn't really work, in that way. If it is the government that is doing that to me, why is there no big hubbub about it? Because it isn't as though they're just picking up vagrants off the street. That would be a pretty sweet commentary, because the government could do that out of nowhere. If if all 6 of these people were just vagrants off the street, and they all come to realize that they actually do have some skill within each other that they can use to be able to get out of the system, then then the parable and the real life consideration would mesh together. But they literally plucked random people, and not only that, but how stupid is this company / shell corporation / aliens, where they would use the same people who they hired to create the cube to then put them in the prison inside of,
that's how you snip off loose ends.
Wouldn't that create too much of a paper trail? Why don't you just assassinate them then? If your desire is to make sure that nobody else knows about what you just did, okay, I can believe that. You know what I mean? There's been hush jobs before, but even in that kind of situation, you don't pop them into the, and again, that would also work if, let's say, every one of these people had something to do
Yeah,
with the
some
creation
connection
of
with
the
it.
cube. Like, hey, I was a like Levin. Yeah, I'm a mathematician. Yeah, I was writing my thesis on X, Y, and Z, and like I didn't realize that, like, or I just got a grant from this this company, and they're asking me to be able, like. Or she has the realization that, oh, these are her numbers. These are the permutations that she's created for X, X, Y, and Z thing too, just like he's making that, They could have made this Quentin guy not have to be a police officer and be such a blatant fascist. They could have just made him be a normal factory worker where he's like, yeah, I work where they make the rivets for these fucking for all of these handles and stuff like that, which would then have explained how he was able to take off a whole ass metal handle
By himself, yeah,
and then
somehow.
not only then be able to open the door still. What like rip off the handle and then open the door when they're sealed into the wall?
Well, the man weighs 500 pounds.
Also, there are multiple handles in a room. You just have to be committed to never needing that door again.
Or you open it and pull it off from the outside. Also possible for a 500-pound man.
But he
True.
had just fallen. How tall do you think those cubes are?
I think they said it was like 14 feet.
That man had to have broken both ankles.
Yeah, I saw
14
quite a few
feet? Yeah,
people
maybe.
fall to the bottom of cubes without sustaining any like major.
Well,
they didn't even
Dude,
get the
no, your
wind knocked
I'm
joints,
out.
your
landed on
joints have to get fucked
Oh.
falling that much.
I saw people
Your
fall on
back-
their backs.
Your back
man.
has to just be fucking God, like okay, and maybe all of his all of his limbs are just fine, but no, there's no way a man of his age is getting up without something not working appropriately. He is at least 5 years older than us, you and Matt.
He has.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah,
Imagine that.
I bumped my knee and I'm
the cube.
I'm out for days.
I'm ready to cry. I'm
I
not
only
going to
cried
work.
for 20 minutes.
I only cry. Is that a
Yeah.
SpongeBob drop? No, I do want to dive into, because I think you make a really good point. I think like your potential option there is like a strong strategy, but I do think it's a different strategy than what they did. Because if this is like a social commentary, I've been wanting to like think through each person's role in it, because I'm pretty sure that each person, save Alderson, I don't know, like has a role to play here that is in some ways like a metaphor for a societal role.
This movie, I feel, the more I'm thinking about it, it's indulgent. That's what it is. Because it wants to have a practical action movie kind of situation happen, but at the same time, it wants to layer a philosophical angle on top of every single one of the characters. That like that not only that they have to play too many hats for how big of a set they got going on right now.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah, there's too many philosophers out there.
Yeah, exactly. And they're the only ones willing to get paid $2,000 to write a whole ass movie like this. A real scriptwriter would have been like, no way. Are you fucking kidding me? Just kidding to whoever wrote the movie. I mean, there was
you
a
did
little bit of hamminess, you have to agree, but not saying you're a failed philosopher. I mean, because
No, we're picking up what you're putting down.
No, exactly. We're picking it up too quickly, if anything. Like, you could have, hit it a little deeper in the dirt.
Descartes.
Who?
Idiots.
Yeah. See, this is suffering from not the same level, but the same type of indulgency as Mother. Where you want to have a family drama issue, but then you want to layer this extra hyper ontology on top of it. And it's like, are we society? Are they escaping to society? Like,
Does this...
is this an escape movie? Because it's like, what's the sub theme of the movie, right? Like, they want to escape, outside of any,
That's the
philosophical
overarching
or
theme.
metaphysical, implications, they want to escape, right? So it's like, then the movie just bogs itself down with not making the escape be worth it, I guess, in the end, because it's like, a lot of them are just like, we want to leave just because, the nihilist guy is just like, once he makes it to the exit, he's like, I don't even understand. Like,
There's no reason for me to leave this cube.
yeah,
That's how you know he's a real nihilist.
yeah, exactly. I was like, oh wait, keep it close, keep it clutch, buddy.
I
Like,
thought that was crazy, Hammy. Like the fact that, because I get it with the
You go
original
on.
accusation where she's like, "This is not your fault," because I could see it as like, I helped to create this. This is on me. I shouldn't make it out of here. I could see that, but just like his response of being like, "There's nothing for me to live for out there," I was like, "Oh, brother." Like,
I agree with
Stop
Quentin
it.
for a second there, for sure. But like, dude, calm the fuck down, all right?
why don't you get over yourself?
Yeah, honestly, that line in writing would have worked just fine if they would have put Quentin in a position of moral ambiguity, where he had to potentially let somebody die. And then once you reach the exit kind of situation, or even just fucking Worth, if you want to just keep it to Worth, right? And then just being like, oh, now they don't know whether they'll be accepted by the bigger society once they're out there again. You know what I mean?
Trope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I think Quentin's role is important. Like, I don't want to understate the importance that can be brought forward from just having a leader of the group, a decisive person that can bring out like the strengths in others. I just think they made a major miscalculation selecting Quentin.
Wow, I totally thought you were going to go a different way with that, because I thought that you were going to say that the reason Quentin is important is because it's always important to point out the fascists as fast as possible.
Yeah, but if you don't have one,
Yeah, and if you don't have one to point out,
You are the
you
fascist.
probably are the fascist in your group. Take a long, hard look.
no, I think he strikes me as like his value is being the one who drives everyone forward in one direction. Like when they're arguing or whatever, he'll get a decision made. I think it's important to have somebody like that. And just the fact that he is like not a great person.
I wonder if this showcase. I mean, yeah, sure. He himself has enough character flaws to be like not a great person, right? But I think this movie, if you want to take it from like as an interpersonal exercise, I think it really does showcase the importance of, as a leader, never playing your hand too hard, right? It's like the point of view in that way is to rally the people with the kind of qualities and abilities you don't have. You know what I mean? In a positive direction, to be able to then have them, both in a self-interested way, because you get to move forward too, you know what I mean? But also have them self-actualize in such a way that eventually all you need to do is little nudges, you know what I mean? All you need to do is essentially just keep the cube, you know what I mean, all in one place in order to be able to have the people who actually know or are more specialized in their way, you know what I mean, keep going forward.
This is a real thing. I mean, I had a boss that he was like a leader of a company, so he's like a business leader, but he wasn't an expert in any particular area that his direct reports were experts in. And he was very open about that. He was like, I'm just here to provide the overall direction and to support you guys getting done what you need to get done. And I think that's the most effective method of leadership. Like, I really don't think leaders, managers, stuff like that need to have the expertise. They just need to provide the direction and the clarity. And I think that was his role.
And he did that wonderfully at the beginning.
Yes, and he kept people calm, which is 100% important.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the issue, boils down at least for Quentin, right, is just the fact that he just, maybe because he, as a police officer, had to go through perhaps the kind of hazing police officers go through in relation to the fact that you compartmentalize all of your issues, and you're like, we don't have time to be thinking about that shit because we need to keep moving forward. You know what I mean? So he let the mask slip in that way around a group of people who would not understand. And the mask kept slipping. Eventually to the point that he saw that there was no turning back. So he's like, okay, if that's just what it's going to be.
Double down.
Fuck you. Poison.
Triple down.
You know what I mean? Drop him down. Yeah, drop it. And
because they're not going to carry him anymore if he stops adding the value that he was here to add.
Exactly. And again, as an X-ray visioned individual toward uselessness, he saw how quickly he was self-chipping away his worth and value to the group. Because he did a gambit when he did the whole like pointing out the flaws of Dr. Holloway, he was expecting others to see what he saw at that moment and be like, yeah, this lady is a bitch. And like,
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
In his defense, she was insufferable.
Yeah, but this goes to show that one should not be saying the quiet part loudly if everybody already implicitly understands it anyways.
Give people some credit.
You're not going to be gaining anything by pointing out the obvious in that way.
No.
And maybe that also just goes to showcase the fact that, he was reaching the limits of his adequacy. So because of that, all he really had was the ability to be like, no, I am the leader because I am more put together in,
I'm bigger and
ABC,
stronger than the rest of you.
Well, and pushing people down a little bit makes them more dependent on you, too,
Yeah.
or makes people like have a skewed idea of your perceived value in the group. It's like, well, not having this person would result in a huge change in the way we operate, so we can't do that.
You know what's hilarious, though, is the fact that the perception of police officers in America from the lensing of a Canadian has not changed one bit.
No, they were ahead of the game, man.
Apparently, it's been a problem for a long time. This movie's 20-some years old.
Yeah, I was surprised
25.
to see how well aged some of the comments were.
Mm-hmm.
It's also weird to be like, Canadians are like, no, all of your cops are bad. Those ones.
At least there's a theme at a minimum. I thought it was interesting too, because with like Dr. Holloway's position is like, it's almost like a sub value. Like, I think her value is to, keep around Kazan and to like create a comfortable enough environment for him to add the value that he needs to add.
I think she showcases the sad unsung hero that is the risk mitigator in society,
That too.
because Quentin goes off and he gets his leg all cut up, right? She manages to be able to bandage it up, get him back on his feet, in pretty much no time. Whereas everybody else would have just been like, well, that really fucking sucks.
That looks gross.
As he's just bleeding out, or they would have done a shitty job at it, you know what I mean? Or whatever, and, so just from, if we're going to say that Quentin's role is valuable, right? It's like the fact that she was able to keep Quentin in tip-top shape makes it so her role is just as valuable in that way, and it not only does it doesn't, and it transcends the leader too. Like, she is needed across the board in that way.
I mean, we've all played Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a healer in your group and you're going into combat, you're like, keep the healer in the back, protect the healer. You don't send the healer into combat. You keep that person there.
It's classic Sun Tzu. Art of War. Shit. No, I don't.
Yeah, so I think
He played a lot of D&D back in his day.
Yeah, he started it.
I think a doctor role is important, but I also think that they would have ditched Kazan right away if she hadn't been there. And he was a critical key, to getting out.
Yeah, it's, again, the indulgency of the movie, right? Because it wants to keep a realistic, these are people, you know what I mean? They're going to, act like people, but at the same time, not really, because they're going to act like archetypes of macro archetypes of society. So
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, we can't leave and even then the movies, and this is such a 2022 thing to say, the actual like subtext of the movie is still horrendous, because it tells you the fact that the only reason one should save Kazan at the end of the day is because he did prove to be useful at the end of the day anyway. Like, there is no genuine human value inherent that makes it so one should save Kazan. It's only because at that very moment, he proved himself to be needed going forward. Otherwise, he still would have been dead weight the entire time, which would then have made it so it would have eventually dropped him off anyway. You know, if the movie really wanted to stick to its guns in that way, you know, it would have made it so he was useless and a hindrance the entire time, never adding anything positive, positive in terms of like value progression forward, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, that would have created a really interesting discussion.
Yeah, for sure. Because otherwise, in this movie is this is where the 2022 aspect of it is. It's very ableist in that way because it pretty much showcases the fact that yes, the group will put you into consideration and give you value the moment you showcase value, And same thing with Worth. It's like the moment it wasn't until that he not let go of his nihilism, but just decided to do shit essentially.
Oh, fine.
Yeah, exactly. That everyone gave him the time of day in that way. His is a little different because of the fact that it's more self-wrought. It's like the way that he's coming at things, objectively isn't wrong. But at the same time, it's not useful. In this group high pressure setting kind of situation.
I felt this in such a real way because now in my career, I have worked with about 2 different people that I don't know, because I relate to nihilism a little bit, I consider myself a realist, but I've worked with 2 separate people who are nihilists to their core. And it was in that moment at the beginning where he made a couple of comments and then Dr. Holloway was like, I can't stand that attitude. And I felt that for a second because working with people like that suck. Because to some degree, I'm like, hey, man, I get it. This might not be something that we can just fix by banding together. I get that. But also, we're paid to be here to try something. And in this situation, it's life-threatening. So I could really see both sides of that. While he might be more correct, it's totally degrading to the rest of the group.
Yeah, for sure. Not only that, but to a particular degree, to a great ape like a Homo sapien, nihilism is to a certain degree a bit of theater because your literal genetics won't allow you to 100% not care anymore. Your instincts will drive you to particular things. Your more subconscious and unconscious desires and ids and super egos or however the fuck you want to name them, will override whatever foundational everyday basis of thought that you consider to be nihilist, over in a ride or die situation. And the movie proves that too, because it isn't until because he gets beat up all of the time and he's still pretty whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It isn't until he sees the fact that Levin is being put in a shitty position, and also Kazan that he's being put in a shitty position, that awakens it within Worth the desire to do shit, not because it matters, but because because if you're nihilistic, you're for the most part also negative utilitarian in the sense that if this doesn't matter, why are we suffering for it? We might as
really
well
see that.
I was wondering about this utilitarian sort of tie-in because it does seem like the way that they all have roles to play, and the way that Kazan is only considered useful once he demonstrates his usefulness.
Worth decided to save him before his usefulness was demonstrated too. I know Dr. Holloway was arguing for it, but he was ultimately the one that was
he was the deciding factor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Quentin was again playing a gambit. That one was a earlier, safer gambit on his side, right? Because he was essentially letting go of the mask just a little bit deeper. It's can I really show you the kind of person that I am? No. Worth just said that, we have to keep him, so I guess we're going to have to keep him a little while longer. But Levin, she seems to have a bit of a, issue, with him. So maybe we'll be able to lean on that. You know what I mean? She's a useful person. There's no way we're going to get rid of her. You know what I mean?
Worth is the one that put his life on the line to keep Kazan, though, early on. He was the first one to climb through the sound-triggered room. And he was the one that said, he'll be quiet. He gambled his life on Kazan's ability to just not make a noise until he got through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I just to call out, I like what you said about I don't remember exactly the words you used, but along with utilitarianism does come that idea of like, if this doesn't matter, why are we suffering for it?
Oh, that's negative utilitarianism.
Negative
Yeah, because utilitarianism has to do with happiness, like trying to maximize the general amount of happiness, which is what they were trying to do initially by, issuing value upon each other. When everybody was useful, everybody was happy. Even if they hit dead ends, everyone was still glad to still be thinking of stuff. It wasn't until they added the wrinkle of an individual who has no inherently visible means of being able to provide value that the balance essentially of the whole group keeled off, because everybody was willing to take on a doctor, even if they're useless 99% of the time, because that 1% of the time when they're fucking useful, oh baby, they are useful. Yeah. So it's like I will eat the word bullshit that you keep talking, in the back, because I 100% understand the implicitness of your value, and I will eat that shit, for as long as it's necessary, because I will one day need you, and but then the wrinkle comes in from the fact that this person with implicit value then tries to use and essentially capitalize on that by giving it to somebody who is basically useless at that very moment. They're like, no, you consider me useful, then you're gonna have to saddle that usefulness along with this person. And I am so useful that I'm actually going to sprinkle a little bit of usefulness over to them by the proxy of the fact that they keep me sane. I don't want to deal with monsters who would leave a person like this behind, because it's like at that point I might as well break my fucking fingers, because I don't want to be your doctor, So that part, very, very good, how long have you been going at it for now? Like about almost an hour, right?
Yeah, we're just over an hour.
I'm just saying that in the sense that like it takes a while to dig into that, like I guess that layering of thinking, where I think the indulgency of the macro society aspect kind of it dilutes it from me being able to get to that right away, because I have to fight both things at the same time. It's like, okay, this lady is supposed to showcase the bleeding heartness of reality, or of society, but she's also a real person, who's a real doctor who, has all of these things, which, I mean, I guess in the real world, that's kind of the truth, right? It's like we're all archetypes and actors at the same time.
Yeah.
Her presence alone also mitigates like a toxic stress with people. Just that, like, if I'm not adding value, I could find myself left behind. And if people aren't feeling like that, they're in a better state to add value.
Worth said something sort of early on in the movie once he, like, revealed his particular role in the cube or whatever. And I just thought it was interesting, and maybe it leads to a more meta discussion, or just like maybe ideas because of how ambiguous the movie is. But he says, when somebody asks like what the point of this thing is, he says, you have to put people in it or you have to admit it's pointless. And
that?
So I'm just wondering, I guess, like, what do you think, if anything, the point of the cube is?
Yeah, like what's the value you get out of putting people in there?
I mean, you can that's the thing about post hoc rationalizations, right? Is the
we can go anywhere. Yeah.
Is the fact that just like with the interpretations of this movie, right? Like we can, like if I were a scientist, watching from the outside in of all of these cubes, I could make up a reason why we're doing this. We're doing this for team building exercising. We're doing this for figuring out
team building
exercise.
That would be the most terrifying.
I've been put in escape rooms with my work teams before. It's not as far fetched.
Do you think a bunch of sadists got together in the late 90s, saw this movie, and were like, I've got a business idea. We build rooms, right? We put people in.
It could have come from Cube.
It very well could have.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
funny. I like that.
That's something right there, because this is like, just as somebody, like, I've studied teams and team dynamics a lot. I have to for my career, and I've experimented with them a lot because I have to for my career. But it's like, you see a lot of stuff come out in this movie that you'd be looking for in like a team building situation, and it is interesting because you could learn a lot from this movie as a team builder.
yeah, and it's like, and that is the shittiness of how truthful words are, in the sense that once it's created, you can add the meaning later, and it's like, if this could be a prison, you know what I mean? This could be like, if there's 27,000 rooms, you know what I mean? If you want to be hyper capitalist, baby, you know what I mean? You can compartmentalize the rooms. Part of them are prisons. Part of them are for fun. Part of them are for part of them are, like escape room kind of things. You know what I mean? Others are 100% for governmental agencies. You know what I mean? Literally, because of the dimensions that they give and the ambiguity of the ontology of the movie, I could say that this LLC is essentially made so it gives it to everybody. The shadow government, the aliens, your boss. You know what I mean?
You, listener, your boss. He's in on it.
He did this.
Mm-hmm. How do they know exactly where to pick them up?
No, in terms of where
The
it came
absurdity
from,
of that is just
Oh yeah, I mean, this was a fun movie for sure.
that's literally why we picked it. When we were talking about doing this one or a different movie, we were like, we're gonna do this one because it's more fun.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, this
But we're doing the other one next time.
This one has the benefit of 25 years of hindsight when it comes to the development of this way of thinking, right?
Mhm.
Where, the Cuba society, man, like,
Man.
yeah,
Man.
like there's been a lot of renditions of this type of thinking already. So because of that, coming back to a more early rooted, conception of it, very basic, the basicness of the setting, because of my literally future mind, you know what I mean, makes it so the layering is too easy to get to, and then at that point I started being like, oh, and this is derivative from this, and this is derivative from this. You know what I mean? And it's like, so it's tough because it showcases how much a product of my time I am.
Yeah.
Does
the sort of, if you have any lingering questions about the greater ontology of this film, make you want to watch the second or third one more?
There's more of these
There are
movies?
more. There's a Cube 2, Hypercube, which is a great name for a sequel,
I
and
have
then a
comments,
third one.
but I'm gonna wait until I hear.
Is it
what
the
they
kind of
say.
situation? I don't know. I mean, like,
I have
these,
no idea what's
these.
in them.
Okay. You don't know. Okay.
No.
I do know, but I don't want you to know until you answer this question.
Got it. Okay.
Oh, you watched more of them?
I watched the second one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because this could be like the same issue that like the Purge movies had. If you guys would recall those kind
Oh
of.
yeah.
I never watched it.
No?
I just thought it looked terrible.
I did watch. I watched 2 of the Purge
Yeah.
movies.
Okay. So you know how in the first one, right? It's essentially like this movie in the sense that they almost live in parable land, where they're like, yeah, the government just okayed this, and now we're going to this scenario, In the second one, then they go into the world building of how it gets to be to the degree that the government would even allow and sanction this kind of thing.
Oh, okay. So you get your answers in the second one, sort of.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And the second one leans into what it is as like a genre and makes it a lot more fun, in my opinion.
Oh, okay.
They
found their
incorporate a
lane.
lot more comedy than trying to be a super serious thing.
In the second one?
Yeah.
For this one? For the
no,
Cube?
not for Cube.
Oh,
for the Purge.
I was like, wait a minute.
Even more
Whoa,
comedy?
Cube 2, Electric Boogaloo is going to be funny?
This explains a lot because I was like, at what time in the Purge 2 do they give you more of the big picture?
Don't they? Or is that number 3?
It might be number. It's been a minute since I've seen them, so I could just be flying off the handle and saying things that aren't true. But I feel like The Purge 2 was The Purge 1 with more comedy.
Oh.
Once they get to the 9th one, is it all about family?
Well, it's always about family, Dom.
It's the Fast and the Furious. No, well, I think that they did more like political themes. Like, I feel like The Purge 2 really bought into a lot of like current political issues and formed things coming from that. But I didn't feel like I learned that much about the big picture with The Purge.
Well, spill some of the beans then on Hypercube. Is it?
No, I want to hear Jose's answer. Does this movie, The Cube, make you want to watch Cube 2? And then I will spill more beans on that.
Not too many beans, just a couple beans.
Just a couple beans.
It canonically follows this movie.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I would.
Nice.
Well,
that's worth
good.
something. Yeah.
The Cube, I mean, the movie deserves that credit. It's kind of null because The Cube 2 is basically another Cube movie.
Oh, they do it again?
Another round in The Cube.
With even more philosophers
it's
named.
been a long
Oh,
time.
God.
It's been a long time.
This time we hired
since
two
I've
of
seen
them.
it. You know,
They're easy to find.
I wasn't particularly impressed with Cube 2. I felt like it was I don't know. I feel the same way as The Purge. I hope you don't disagree with this and I sound like super rude. But I think The Purge, the first movie, The Purge, was the better Purge. And then The Purge 2 tried to do it again and make it more
I thought they were all just
current.
okay. I mean, like I just brought it up because of the
No, I don't recommend the movie.
the because of the expansion of like the world building.
World
You know,
building
what I
and
mean, like
stuff,
the first one is just like Parable Land. You know, insurance agent guy. Yeah, he's okay with this until it comes to his door. You know.
Oh God. Now I'm glad I never get the fucking time.
No, I mean, like, point being,
And then
though.
isn't number 2? Oh, now it's poor people. Feel bad.
Yeah, I don't remember it well enough to speak to the details, but I think it's a common theme with movies. When one is successful, you try to do another one that's basically the same thing, and it just comes off a little bit weirder, like The Lion King 2.
The
Like,
sophomore album is usually the toughest.
yeah, and I think it's, you didn't make it unique enough, you didn't add enough, and that's kind of how I feel about the Cube 2.
Wait,
But
you're talking shit about Lion King 2?
no, I just think it's not
Kovu
as good as
story?
Lion King 1, and it's pretty similar. That's all I'm saying.
Innupendi.
Innupendi.
Oh, you know the
Oh, fuck yeah, because
The two?
it fucking slapped.
Lion King 2 slaps.
Oh
You heard it here,
my
folks.
God.
I
yeah.
do like Lion King 2. I just don't think it measures up to Lion King 1.
Okay.
Let us know down in the comments if you want us to watch The Cube 2 Hypercube.
No.
Yeah,
I have
Hypercube.
I've
Is that
got
so?
a list for this podcast.
So is it gonna
since I'm the
have?
Cube.
It's gonna have like 56,000 rooms.
Twice as many rooms,
No,
half as
it's
many people.
17,000 cubed.
Oh God! No one can do that. It's astronomical.
Astronomical.
2.
Definitely foughted. All right, so you guys want to do ratings?
I think that there's enough movies for us to watch that we don't really have to get into the sequels of things until
More than likely not. Yeah.
I refuse until I get through my list of movies
Right.
that I want
Right
to.
on. Yeah. We don't need to be adding addendums to it. Like that's the same thing I thought when it came
Unless
to like
it's the Mario Brothers.
watching like the the Hong Kong version of The Departed, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't give too much try to pushing into that just because like I just don't feel as much connection, you know what I mean? And it's like The Departed was the our cultural rendition of that essentially Universal movie
Story, yeah.
of There Will Always Be Rats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my favorite thing about this channel is how much we mix it up, and keep it flowing and just keep doing whatever feels good to us
And
at
don't
the time.
forget, viewers, this is for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not for you.
You're just along for the ride.
Although we appreciate the 503 of you currently. You
Yeah,
are wonderful
seriously.
people.
Yeah,
All
we're
of
gonna
you.
we're
beautiful.
gonna throw a party about 500 subs. That's not a joke. I bought balloons that spell 500. We're really excited.
Yes.
Thank you for being a part of this.
And
Yes,
it
for real.
spells 500 like with
It does.
letters.
Yeah, well, numbers.
Well,
But
Yeah, that's way too many balloons. Come on.
that would be so many. My house isn't
It's like
big
12
enough for
balloons.
that. With the size they are, there's no way that we can accommodate that unless we put it in the yard.
Look, we don't get the ad revenue to buy 12 balloons.
This is your fault, viewer, all right?
I'm not gonna lie, the 3 balloons that I bought to spell 500 was like maybe a little too much to spend on balloons.
No way.
But
Not
I did
at
it
all.
anyway.
Look forward to the community posts of our party.
Oh yeah, for sure. We look
We
forward
are
to
trying to
community
figure
posts
some
in
out.
general because I am going to try to use that more often.
Now that we're allowed.
Yeah, now that we're actually allowed, you're like, okay, so you're not a bot.
We've been looking at you for 3 years.
Yeah.
And
Yes, you are human.
checks out.
Yeah,
Checks out, yeah.
yeah. The CAPTCHA finally went through. So,
We selected all the pictures
All
of
the buses.
motorcycles. Yeah.
oh no, you picked bus, I picked motorcycle. No.
We'll never get to 1,000.
Another 3 years.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
So first time watch, Jose, what are you giving this movie?
Not as good as Naked Lunch.
What?
Interesting. Interesting.
3.5 stars.
Ooh, I do not like Naked Lunch.
That's
I do
okay.
not
think
You
you're
can like this movie more than Naked Lunch for sure.
And I will.
I gotta say that Naked Lunch was just more sleuthy when it came to like the social commentary of what it was trying to go for. Same exact level of depth, really, you know.
What?
But like
Less hammy.
yeah, less hammy. Yeah, exactly. The characters got to be characters within their own bullshit, especially because we were looking at it through the eyes of a junkie fiend. So because of that, I knew from the moment it started that it was, an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
We see only what the characters see, but we see everything they all see at the same time. So, I mean, because of that, we're not grounded in anyone's own perspective. So it's like, so I'm paranoid one moment with Dr. Holloway, but then I'm really rational another moment with Quentin, telling her that no, there's no, I'm just the guy, and and if there is people who made this, they're just guys like me, and they just get up and they just have bigger desks, you know what I mean? And like, they don't go thinking about
buy
big
boats.
plots. Yeah, they just buy big boats,
Wait. Sorry. I want you to finish your rating, but I want to say that that's a really interesting point that you just made, is that in Cube, we wake up in different rooms with different people, so we don't know who we're seeing this movie as. And I think that's an important...
I think we're the Cube. Why
Man.
not? Up to
We are
interpretation.
objective.
Yeah, I'm society, man. I'm 31 years old. I literally am society. I tell that to myself all of the time. I'm like, there's, sans me literally being dragged to prison. You know what I mean? Like, I make up the rules, I am a straight, straight man, living in America. I pretty much, as long as I don't go too over, again, play my cards too, my hand too hard, like Quentin did, you can essentially just run the world, your micro world in that way,
That's very true.
We can all learn that lesson from Quentin.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of things from Quentin.
You got to keep the rapiness to a certain level.
Right. Otherwise,
Everything
people get
goes
all
crazy,
butt
yeah.
hurt.
Everyone takes it the wrong way.
No one will punch you until you get rapey.
Yeah, I can take an aggressive man. I understand that. But now you're getting all rapey on me. It's like,
We just
whoa.
watched this episode of Always Sunny where Dennis tries to bring the hot news lady back to his bar. We have a bunker, and you and me, and the survival of the race.
Come to the bunker. Come to the
Safe
bunker.
there. You'll like it. Fair enough. 3.5. That's not bad.
Yeah, I say 3.5 stars. Yeah, I mean, I could give it 4 considering the amount of money that they had available. This is most certainly a 4 out of 5 movie with the right amount of money.
Yeah.
But I can't pretend that I saw anything other than what I saw. And it's like,
Its originality kind of pushes it up in the 3.5-ish range.
yeah. It suffers from the fact that I watched it when I did. Because this would be a seminal movie for me if I were a 40-year-old man, I feel. Watch this when I was 17 to 20 years old. What the fuck is this? And then a year later, I get to watch The Matrix? What?
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, Cube sucks.
Yeah.
The Matrix is where it's at. Also, Limp Bizkit is great.
Oh, fuck yeah. That Kid Rock guy, he's going places.
He's going to make it far. Yeah. He'll never.
I just picked up the Marshall Mathers LP. I mean, life is good.
Oh.
Oh man, now I'm getting on this stuff. Halo 2.
Well, that's coming, but that's after 9/11. So
Yeah.
the disillusionment still happens, you know.
Well, we were just kids. But yeah. Anyway, Hannah, second watch.
I mean, before saying anything else, I just want to stress that I really don't want Naked Lunch to be our baseline for the movie ratings.
I'm glad that you liked it, Jose. And even more so because I think you said like this movie is not going to get more than 10 views or whatever on our, and I think it's up to like 25.
Yeah.
Every
not bad.
view
It
that
literally
gets
doubled
added to that
expectations
one.
both on me and in the view count.
And that's why it gets 4 stars.
Yeah.
Such a bummer. I mean, I don't know. It was a fine pick. I don't like Naked Lunch, but for this movie, I'm inclined to agree with Jose. I think I need to give it a 3.5 because I think what you said early on about like, yeah, this is a good idea and something that they capitalize on. It's an interesting and unique movie, 100%. And I love what's driving it. It's just at the end of the day, it could have been executed a lot better. And I think it could easily be a 4, maybe even a 4.5 if it had been. But I think outside of the timeline, you know, just with the budget and the acting and the dialogue, well, the acting was fine. The dialogue, I think, is the primary weak point here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I really enjoy this movie. What I like the most about it, I feel like I say this on a lot of our episodes, it's an unforgettable movie. I watch a lot of movies, a lot of horror movies especially, and like just weird movies, so this falls in that bucket. I've watched a ton of them. I forget about a lot of them after a week and a half because I watch so many of them, and Cube is just one of those that never left my mind. And that makes me want to give it a 4, but rewatching it and just feeling the hamminess, like I got to give it a 3.5.
There was, I don't remember the YouTuber's name. And go ahead.
I was just going to, I guess, intersectionalize it with another movie that we've done.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
that is hammy too when it comes to the dialogue, The Time Machine. You know, I feel that at least that movie keeps the reins of the existential quandaries that it's going to showcase. I mean, like just trying to output to the viewer pretty up front. Be like, hey, listen, you can have certain interpretations of the movie, but this is what we're trying to say about it. You know, is that you can vibe with it, and they can vibe with you hard. You know, or it just bounce right off of you. And with this movie, it's almost like an interpretational black hole where it will suck up any answer that you give it because they're all just as valid. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because, I mean, it's a cube that represents society, but then there's only 6 people in it now. You know, like, I was going to say, this is a very miscellaneous thing.
There we go.
One of the reasons why I don't think there's more people in the cube is because of how easy it is to hear other sounds.
Good point.
You
In
know,
walls.
it's like that guy was just doing a little wheel, you know, and that was able to be heard, you know.
Like 3-4 rooms away or something. Yeah.
Yeah, they were able to pinpoint his location and find him without error, too.
So I would imagine, right, that it doesn't take too much to believe that there's a whole shit ton of people just saying, help, you know, what the fuck? You know,
Yeah, that's a good point.
it would be, that would have been a really, you know, this is another thing where it's like maybe, you know, like just a little bit more money would have added value, you know, where it's like there would have been like ambient sounds of like screams in the background where they're like, we can't go help them. Like,
Right. That's
like
2 trap
Like-
doors
Ooh,
away
that
or
would be
something.
so
if they
cool.
like if they get to us, we're all down to help. You know what I mean? But we can't go out there and risk what might be between us, you know, and then give this person false hope where we can't coordinate them, you know, out of their room to reach us, you know.
It's an excellent
Which,
point.
if we're going to talk about macro societal ways of thinking, that's a perfect way of thinking where everybody's, you know, running on with good faith intentions. But we all understand the spider web that we live in and the fact that we can't just extend our hand that freely because of the fact that there are traps in the middle of it. There could, you know, in that way, there could be people, you know, it would have been great if one of the people, aside from Quentin, who just went psycho, really, just went psycho, if there were people who literally were bad actors. You know, like this movie has everybody operating on good faith essentially, up until they literally start psychologically breaking in that way.
It's even mentioned twice, I think, in different lines of dialogue that they're the traps. The other people are the traps.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not the rooms, it's these fucking people. But that was after the break. But yeah.
But that's Quentin saying that too.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flexing
Don't
his,
trust the fascist.
puffing his chest. Yeah.
Ren said it at the
Fucking
beginning. He
fascist.
said, you guys have to save yourselves from yourselves.
From yourselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. You were gonna
That
give
was a
your
good
rating.
call out.
Oh, yeah, it was something. Yeah, a YouTuber whom I don't remember, but this was just like getting
Shout
at
out.
the yeah, whomever
Shout
you
out to
are,
whomever.
Give him a sub.
had a video posted a year ago, and the only reason I found this because I was like searching around Cube stuff today, looking at pictures and whatnot, but that had like 5.4 million views, and it was titled something like "How to Escape the Death Maze" from Cube. Yeah, and this video was posted a year ago, and I'm sure it's a very popular YouTuber, and that's why the view count is so high. But it does cause me to think that this particular movie, becoming a cult classic, is so ingrained itself into our cultural memory that it will always be one of those. The Matrixes, a Dune, you know, one
People
of these.
know what it is.
Exactly.
Well, this is a lock and key movie if you're a sci-fi low fantasy fan.
Absolutely.
Because again, like if you're our age and you've never seen this movie will unlock a lot of tropes.
Oh,
You know?
Lock and Key is such a gross call out from this movie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's true.
Ew.
Yeah, my bad.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, Kimmy just went through that like a couple months ago because I showed her The Godfather Part 1, you know, not too long ago.
Ooh.
And I was just like, you have to realize that your third eye will literally open to like all of the ways that people do homages to this movie, do scene like parodies to all of these things. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen The
I
Godfather.
felt this in such a real way because in
that's
college,
the next movie.
I'm sure
calling
that
it.
hurts my cred quite a bit on the
It
podcast.
really
here.
should.
We really need to watch The Godfather Part 1 then. Holy fucking shit.
It's so good. In college, I took a Shakespeare class, and I knew loosely about Shakespeare and the primary like things in there. But as I took the Shakespeare class, I just like slowly had this awakening that so much is a derivative of a Shakespeare story. And I mean, we know at this point that Shakespeare, you know, stole his shit from other stories.
Nothing is new
We
under
learned
the
that
sun.
on the
Yeah.
podcast. But
Who
it's
said that?
just
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, it's in the Bible. And I bet they stole that shit too.
They probably did. Oh my god, it never stopped.
But it's crazy. I seek out a lot of times cult classics, even if they're not something that I particularly want to watch, just if I haven't seen them, just because I want to recognize the parallels. I want to see what the things are that I love that took from that. You know, I want to give due credit. So,
Sure. It reminds me of that 4-panel comic that I'll try to describe audibly, where in the first panel it's, I think, Picasso, because he died in like the 40s or something, or the 60s.
Mhm.
And he's painting, and he's like, I'll never be as good as the old masters. And then it's like another one, and then it's like a guy on a cave wall, and he's like, I'm the
I'm
best.
the best.
yeah.
I've seen that one. Yep.
That's a good one.
It's totally true. I mean, everything's just, you know, derivative of each other. And it's great the fact that we get to stand on other people's shoulders in that way. Because, I mean, otherwise there would be the same story over and over again, right? I mean, like now everyone who is a cinematographer understands that the cube is a thing. Okay. You watched it. You watched its execution. You watched where they fell short. How can you fix that? You know, like there's just there's everything to be said about just a pockmarked end work, you know, that is just so much better than whatever, you know, the story is always perfect in the head, you know? So,
That's why I think that I have to give this movie a 4 stars.
okay. Oh, that's totally
just
fair.
for that reason, because it really does, like Alien, like you say The Godfather is, and I believe you, that you probably couldn't have the platform without the cube. You probably couldn't have
No, I
a
don't
lot
think
of
so.
different
The platform would have been worse without
probably a lot worse, because
Yeah.
they stole so much from this movie. But yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'd give it a strong 4. It's one of those super original, never gonna leave, the endless regurgitation and rewriting of the eternal story of, these particular humanity traits. And for that reason, I love it. Also, the kills are fun. It doesn't take itself that seriously.
Yeah, honestly,
Fair.
at the very end of this movie, they could have, with the white light aspect, they could have just been like Cube Hellraiser at the end, because Pinhead could have easily met that man at the very end of this whole
Easily.
situation, and it would have fit so perfectly.
I think it would have been really good.
Yeah,
So
it pans down
perfect.
to Kazan's hand, and he's
Yeah.
holding the puzzle box, and you're like, oh!
Yeah, and it does like a little quick zoom out in, like, it's just like where do you think you are? And it's just like
That'll be perfect. Hey, when that new, I think it's October 4th.
Cube 4.
Cube.
They redid Hellraiser for Hulu or whatever, so we
I
might
saw
have
that.
to give that a shot. But yeah, any final parting farts?
I had a
Well,
lot of
farting
fun
parts?
thinking about this movie.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's all we really hope
it didn't.
That's what we're looking for.
It
Even
didn't
if you don't
crack
like it.
anything. And the reason, and just to give a little bit of clarity about my score to Hannah, just because she gave such a pushback in terms of the difference between this and Naked Lunch.
They had the same score though.
Huh? No, Naked Lunch has 4.
Yeah, but we gave the same score for this.
Oh,
movie.
for this one, for sure. No. Well, the reason why I pushed it just an nth further was just because of the fact that, the generalizations were just too heavy for me.
I think that's just the difference between you and I in tastes.
Yeah.
Is like I like knowing less than you like knowing
Yeah.
going into movies, and I think we've seen that a few times throughout the podcast. That's very much just a preference thing.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to know that it's only like a 0.5, deviation.
Oh,
We
that's why
still
we-
come out very
get along
similarly
so well.
on our ratings. So all factors considered, like we look at some different factors than each other, but I think it's very validating that our ratings are usually within a half a point with each other.
Yeah.
Well, we're able to. What I really like about is that we're able to dig. Like having you guys here is the other 2/3 of my thoughts that I don't dig into of my own accord.
Taking credit for them.
Yeah, you force it upon me, and that's why I
Good
love
job, Quentin.
watching. You've taught me so much.
Boo, Quentin. Don't be rapey.
No, see, this is the perfect non-rapey Quentin. See, he gets all the benefit of,
There is no non-rapey Quentin.
I am the non-raping.
I am non-rapey Quentin.
Before Quentin, I am. Anyway,
There's another t-shirt idea.
Let's do it. First T-shirt made by the
Yeah.
podcast.
Sign
I
up
am
to the
non-rapey
Patreon to
Quentin.
get your, I'm
Get your
not
special
rapey.
non-rapey Quentin shirt. Made with 100% non-rapey fabrics.
Oh, damn it.
We can't promise that. I'm pretty sure some third world country probably got raped for the fabrics of whatever shirt we made.
Yeah. Well,
I
what a
can't-
great down note to take us.
We make
Yeah.
the fabrics ourselves.
Just
So-
like I said at the beginning of the movie, when Quentin's like, "It's gonna be okay," I was like, "You can't be making those kind of guarantees to people when you don't know, what I mean, whether that's true or not. You become complicit and responsible when you."
And also, you're like, I haven't seen this movie yet, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be okay, Quentin. We got like 90 minutes left. What are you going to...
Doesn't look good, Quentin.
Does he not realize the movie just started?
One of our people already got like diced.
Yeah, poor Alderson. We'll never forget you.
Yeah, the real MVP.
Like Jose was saying, I think it's a pretty good idea, and we will put it up. Our current list of movies for the podcast. So we will have the opportunity for you guys to vote on them if that's something that you want to do.
Yeah,
if
I mean,
nobody votes, we
democracy
will
is
pick
dead, and we all
ourselves.
know it. But I mean, go ahead
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah,
pretend.
you can vote. It won't mean anything, but we might take it into consideration.
Exactly. We are
No.
the voice of the people.
We are really interested in your votes, and it will definitely sway our votes. So, like our whatever we watch, and we'll be feeding them with options we already like. So,
Right
It's
after
like an
I'm forced to
80%
watch.
I mean, we can't lose. Exactly. Like
Right,
any good
yeah.
politician, we'll make it so the choices make it so we can't lose. But look at how
I'm
transparent
playing
we are.
both sides, so I
Look
always
at
come
how
out.
transparent I am.
everything's made up, and the votes don't matter.
Yeah, exactly. But you know it. You're in on it.
If you watch the podcast,
All 503 of you are in on it. Don't forget that.
Yep, exactly. You made the cube.
You are the cube, man.
Is it any wonder that there were only 6 characters and 6 sides to a cube?
stop it. No, we don't have time.
All right, spark up the blunt. This has been great. Thanks, you guys, for hanging out. And we will catch you next weekend, either with another podcast or some more fun video game shenanigans.
Well, don't make that kind of guarantee. We might be here next weekend.
We might be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Turn
right,
on
love
your
you.
notifications.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everybody. Bye.